The Forgotten Outcasts. The crimson expanse stretched endlessly before Admiral Kai Nakamura, a vast region of space where red dwarf stars burned dim and ancient, casting long shadows across forgotten worlds. No ship from the Galactic Assembly had ventured here in 5 centuries. It was perfect for humanity's purposes. From the command deck of the station designated Phoenix Base, Kai watched the latest patrol reports scroll across his screen. 500 years had passed since the Great Betrayal, when humanity was falsely accused of genocide and exiled from civilized space. The official records in the Assembly archives told a simple story. Humans had destroyed 3 colony worlds belonging to the peaceful Etherians, killing billions. The evidence had been overwhelming, they said. Human DNA at the crime scenes, human weapon signatures on the destroyed cities, even recorded transmissions in human languages claiming responsibility. The Assembly's verdict was swift and merciless. Every human was to be expelled from Assembly space within 1 solar cycle. Earth itself was quarantined, its people forbidden from developing spaceflight technology ever again. But the Assembly had made one crucial mistake. They assumed that all humans beyond Earth would simply die in the harsh regions outside their territory. They never imagined that a scattered fleet of human ships would find refuge in the Crimson Expanse, that they would adapt, survive, and eventually thrive in conditions other species considered impossible. The radiation from the red dwarfs that would kill most species in months had forced rapid adaptation in human physiology. Their children grew stronger, more resilient, able to see spectrums of light that their ancestors never could. Lieutenant Commander Sophia Reyes entered the command center, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber carved from asteroid rock. "Admiral," she said, her voice carrying an edge of excitement that immediately caught Kai's attention. "The excavation team on Kronos 7 has found something extraordinary." Kai turned from the viewing port, his interest piqued. Kronos 7 was their newest mining operation, a dead world that had once belonged to an ancient civilization that predated even the Assembly. "Show me," Kai commanded. Sophia activated the holographic display, and a 3-dimensional image materialized between them. It showed a massive underground structure, clearly artificial, with architecture unlike anything in the Assembly's databases. The structure pulsed with a faint energy signature that their sensors could barely detect. "The team believes it's a shipyard," Sophia explained. "But not just any shipyard. The technology inside is beyond anything we've seen. The automated systems are still partially functional after what must be millions of years." Kai studied the image carefully. His mind raced with possibilities. For 5 centuries, humanity had been building their strength in secret. They had established 17 hidden colonies across the expanse. Their population had grown to nearly 50 million. They had built ships, weapons, and defensive stations, all while remaining invisible to the Assembly's long-range sensors. But their technology, while advanced by human standards, was still decades behind the Assembly's most powerful members. This discovery could change everything. "Prepare a full archaeological team," Kai ordered, "and maintain absolute security. If this is what I think it is, it could be the key to our return." As Sophia hurried to carry out his orders, Kai returned his gaze to the stars. He thought of Earth, quarantined and isolated, its billions of people told they were the descendants of monsters. He thought of the human colonies destroyed in the early days of exile, when they lacked the resources to defend themselves against pirates and raiders who saw them as easy prey. The real truth about the Great Betrayal had taken centuries to uncover. Human intelligence operatives, disguised with alien biosuits and fake identities, had slowly infiltrated the edges of Assembly space. They gathered fragments of data, whispered conversations, classified documents that should have been destroyed. Piece by piece, they assembled the truth. The Vorthak Dominion, one of the Assembly's most powerful and respected members, had orchestrated the entire conspiracy. The Vorthak had seen humanity's rapid expansion and technological innovation as a threat to their dominance. In just 50 years after first contact, humans had gone from a single planet species to controlling 17 systems. Their adaptability and creativity had caught the attention of many younger Assembly races, who began to see the Vorthak's rigid leadership as outdated. The solution was elegant in its cruelty: frame humanity for an unforgivable crime, eliminate a rival, and reinforce their own position as protectors of galactic peace. 3 weeks later, Kai stood inside the ancient shipyard on Kronos 7. The structure was even more impressive in person. Crystalline computers hummed with energy drawn from the planet's core. Construction bays stretched for kilometers, filled with half-completed vessels that looked more like works of art than weapons of war. But it was the central chamber that took his breath away. There, suspended in a stasis field, was a completed warship unlike anything he had ever imagined. The ship was 2 kilometers long, its hull made from a material that seemed to shift between solid and energy. Weapons ports lined its surface, but they were integrated so seamlessly that the ship appeared to be a single, continuous form. The ancient builders had achieved a level of technology that made the assembly's best ships look primitive by comparison. Dr. Chen Wei, the expedition's lead scientist, approached with a datapad. "Admiral, we've managed to interface with the ship's systems. It's incredible. The ship is fully functional, just waiting for a crew." Kai could hardly believe what he was hearing. "How is that possible after so much time?" "The ship exists partially outside normal space-time," Chen explained. "To it, only a few years have passed since its construction. The builders were preparing for something, a war perhaps, but they disappeared before they could use their creation. The ship's databases are intact. With time, we could learn to build more." "How long?" Kai asked. "To understand the technology well enough to replicate it," Chen considered. 5 years, maybe 10, but we could have this ship operational within 6 months. Kai made his decision. "Do it, and begin training our best crew." It's time humanity announced its return to the galaxy. The months that followed were a blur of activity. The ancient warship, which they christened Vindication, became the focus of humanity's greatest minds. Engineers worked around the clock to understand its systems. Pilots trained in simulators based on the ship's interface. Scientists unlocked weapons that could pierce any shield, engines that could outrun anything in known space, and defensive systems that made the ship nearly invulnerable. But Kai knew that one ship, no matter how advanced, would not be enough. They needed allies, evidence, and perfect timing. The intelligence network reported that tensions were rising between the Vorthak and several younger assembly races. The Dominion's harsh rule was creating cracks in their perfect facade. It was an opportunity that might not come again. Captain Maria Santos was chosen to command the Vindication. She was third-generation Expanse-born, her body adapted to the harsh radiation, her mind sharp from years of combat against pirates and raiders. She had lost her grandparents in the exile, and her parents in the early colony struggles. She understood what this mission meant not just for humanity, but for justice itself. As the Vindication powered up for its maiden voyage, Kai addressed the crew from Phoenix Base. "You carry the hopes of 50 million humans with you," he said. "But more than that, you carry the truth. The galaxy has been told a lie for 5 centuries. Today we begin to correct that lie. Remember, we are not returning as conquerors or seeking revenge. We return as humans have always been, seekers of truth, defenders of justice, and builders of a better future." The ancient ship's engines engaged with a harmony that sounded almost like music. Space itself seemed to bend around the vessel as it accelerated beyond anything human technology could achieve. As it disappeared into the void, heading for assembly space, Kai allowed himself a moment of hope. The exile was ending. Humanity was coming home. The Reckoning. The Vindication dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Meridian system, the crossroads of assembly space where dozens of trade routes converged. Captain Maria Santos stood at the command console, her enhanced eyes taking in the tactical display with superhuman speed. 500 years of exile ended in this moment. Around her, the bridge crew worked with silent efficiency, their movements precise despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. "Passive sensors only," Maria commanded. "Let's see what we're dealing with before we announce ourselves." The tactical officer, Commander James Park, nodded and adjusted his controls. The Vindication's advanced sensors, based on technology millions of years old, could detect ships and stations from distances the assembly considered impossible. The display lit up with hundreds of contacts, cargo vessels, patrol ships, and 3 assembly military cruisers maintaining order. Maria studied the positions carefully. The assembly had grown complacent in 5 centuries of peace. Their formations were predictable, their patrol patterns routine. They had no idea that humanity had spent those same centuries preparing for this moment. "Captain," Park reported, "I'm detecting a Vorthak Dominion dreadnought in high orbit around Meridian Prime. It's the Eternal Supremacy, their flagship." Maria smiled grimly. How convenient that their greatest warship would be here to witness humanity's return. But first they needed to make sure their message would be heard across the galaxy. Lieutenant Torres, open a channel on all assembly emergency frequencies. Override their security protocols. Torres's fingers danced across her console, using codes that human intelligence had painstakingly acquired over decades. Channel open, Captain. The entire assembly network is listening. Maria took a breath, then spoke with clear authority. This is Captain Maria Santos of the human warship Vindication. We have returned from exile to present evidence of our innocence in the crimes for which we were falsely accused. We demand an immediate assembly hearing and the presence of all member species representatives. Any attempt to engage us militarily will be considered an admission of guilt by the Vorthak Dominion. The response was immediate and chaotic. Dozens of ships changed course, some fleeing, others moving to intercept. The assembly cruisers powered up their weapons and began advancing in formation. But it was the Vorthak dreadnought that concerned Maria most. The massive ship, nearly 5 kilometers long and bristling with weapons, was already moving to attack position. A harsh voice crackled over the communications system. Unknown vessel, this is Fleet Commander Vox of the Vorthak Dominion. Humanity was exiled for genocide and has no standing in assembly space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Maria exchanged glances with her bridge crew. They had expected this response. The Vorthak could not allow humanity's evidence to be heard. Their only option was to destroy the Vindication before the truth could be revealed. Fleet Commander Vox, Maria replied calmly. We have detailed evidence of the Vorthak conspiracy to frame humanity for the Etherian colony massacres. This evidence includes recovered Vorthak military communications, genetic proof that Vorthak shapeshifters impersonated humans during the attacks, and testimony from survivors who were thought dead. Stand down or we will defend ourselves. The Vorthak's response came in the form of weapons fire. Massive energy beams lanced out from the eternal supremacy, powerful enough to split a moon in half. They struck the Vindication shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by defenses that operated on principles the assembly had never discovered. Maria felt the ship adjust automatically, learning from the attack, adapting its defenses to be even more effective. Return fire. Warning shots only, Maria ordered. Let's show them what they're dealing with. The Vindication's weapons powered up with a sound like singing crystal. Beams of coherent energy, impossibly thin and precise, lanced out across space. They carved deep gouges in the Eternal Supremacy's hull, disabling weapon systems without breaching the inner compartments. It was a display of surgical precision that no assembly weapon could match. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. The Eternal Supremacy, pride of the Vorthak fleet, hung disabled in space, its weapons destroyed, its engines offline. The assembly cruisers had stopped their advance, their captains smart enough to recognize when they were outmatched. But Maria knew the real battle was just beginning. The physical confrontation was merely the opening move in a much larger game. Captain Santos, a new voice came over the communication system. This is Etherian Ambassador Lyriel. I am aboard the diplomatic station Harmony. The Etherians still mourn our dead, but we have always questioned the evidence against humanity. If you have proof of your innocence, we will ensure it is heard. Maria felt a surge of hope. The Etherians, despite being the victims of the massacre, were known for their commitment to justice and truth. Their support could change everything. Ambassador Lyriel, we are transmitting our evidence package now. It contains 500 years of investigation, including recovered Vorthak military assets used in the attacks. The data transmission took several minutes, even with the Vindication's advanced systems. It contained terabytes of evidence, meticulously gathered and verified. Video recordings of Vorthak shapeshifters practicing human mannerisms, chemical analysis of weapons residue that matched Vorthak, not human, signatures. Most damning of all, a recovered Vorthak tactical computer containing the entire operation plan, codenamed Scapegoat Protocol. As the evidence spread across the assembly network, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Ships from a dozen species began arriving in the system, their crews demanding answers. The Vorthak delegation attempted to jam the transmissions, but the Vindication systems cut through their interference like it wasn't there. Within an hour, the evidence had reached every corner of assembly space. Ambassador Lyriel's voice returned, heavy with emotion. Captain Santos, the evidence is undeniable. The Etherian delegation formally requests an emergency assembly session. We also extend our deepest apologies to humanity for the injustice you have suffered." Maria felt tears in her eyes, the first she had shed since childhood. "Ambassador, your words mean more than you know, but the apology should come from those truly responsible." The emergency assembly session convened 6 hours later on the Harmony Station. Maria attended in person, accompanied by a small honor guard. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species, their voices creating a cacophony of discussion and debate. The Vorthak delegation sat in stony silence, their fleet commander Vox notably absent after his defeat. The session lasted for 12 hours. Evidence was presented, questioned, and verified. Witnesses were called, including several Etherian survivors who had always maintained that something was wrong with the official story. The Vorthak defense crumbled piece by piece, their lies exposed, their conspiracy revealed. When the vote came, it was unanimous except for the Vorthak themselves. Humanity was innocent. The exile was lifted immediately, but Maria wasn't finished. She stood before the assembly and spoke not of revenge, but of the future. "Humanity does not seek vengeance," she said. "We seek justice for those who died, both Etherian and human. We seek restoration for the centuries stolen from us, and we seek a place in this assembly, not as subjects, but as equals. We have survived your worst. We have uncovered your darkest secrets, and we have returned not with a fleet of warships, but with a single vessel and the truth. That is the human way." The Vorthak Dominion was stripped of their assembly leadership. Reparations were ordered, both to humanity and to the Etherian colonies. Earth's quarantine was lifted, and communication was re-established after 5 centuries of silence. The joy on both sides was indescribable. Families separated for generations were reunited. Technology and knowledge flowed both ways, enriching both Earth and the Expanse colonies. 3 months later, Maria stood on the bridge of the Vindication as it approached Earth. The blue marble grew larger in the view screen. Surrounded now by new orbital stations built with hybrid human-ancient technology, the planet's population had never stopped believing that their exiled brothers and sisters would return. They had prepared for this day, maintaining museums and memorials to those who had been forced to leave. Admiral Nakamura's voice came over the communication system from Phoenix Base. "Captain Santos, how does it feel to see Earth again?" Maria smiled. "Like coming home after a very long journey, Admiral. But in truth, we bring home with us. The Expanse colonies won't be abandoned. They're part of humanity now, part of our story. The galaxy would never be the same." Humanity's return brought new ideas, new perspectives, and new technologies. The ancient shipyard on Chronos 7 became a center of learning, with scientists from across the assembly working together to unlock its secrets. The rigid hierarchies that had allowed the Vorthak conspiracy to succeed were replaced with more transparent systems. Truth and justice became more than just words in the assembly charter. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. The exile had not broken them. It had forged them into something stronger. The children of the Crimson Expanse and the children of Earth were united in a way that transcended the vast distances between stars. They had learned that home was not just a place, but a people, and no force in the universe could take that away from them again. The Vindication took its place as the flagship of humanity's new fleet, a symbol not of military might, but of resilience and truth. Its ancient technology was slowly understood and replicated, ushering in a new age of exploration and discovery. Captain Maria Santos continued to command the vessel, leading diplomatic missions to the farthest reaches of known space, always carrying the same message that humanity was back, and this time they were here to stay. As the years passed, the story of humanity's exile and return became legend throughout the galaxy. It was told in schools and academies as a cautionary tale about the dangers of prejudice and rush to judgment. But for humans, it was simply another chapter in their long story of survival against all odds. They had been knocked down, cast out, and left for dead. But they had risen again, stronger and wiser, ready to face whatever challenges the universe might throw at them next.